Fish are disappearing from a reef, one by one. No bodies, no blood, no evidence, no abnormalities in the water chemistry, no disease, no visible predators within the reef. The reef, which was teeming with fish just the day before, is nearly empty today. The sand looks normal, flat, undisturbed, a sandy patch between the coral heads, the kind you'd swim past 1,000 times without giving it a second glance. There's nothing there. But it happened, for months, probably years. Beneath that flat, calm, ordinary pile of sand, a body lies curled up, stretching about 10 feet long and no more than 2 inches wide. It built its own nest. It reinforced its walls with mucus to prevent collapse, and it positioned itself so that only 5 tiny antennae, each smaller than a grain of rice, would protrude above the surface. 5 points, on a patch of sand the size of a dinner plate. This is the only visible trace of one of the most efficient ambush predators the ocean has ever produced. The antennae are not decorative. They are a dual sensor detection system, chemoreceptors that detect organic molecules released by passing organisms, and the canoreceptors that register the slightest vibration in the water column. A flick of a tail fin, the pressure wave of a swimming fish, the chemical signature of a wounded shrimp. The antennae detect it, the segmented body processes it, and a decision to strike is made in milliseconds. A small damselfish swims over the sand patch. The antennae register the vibration, the chemical trace, the proximity. The worm's entire body, all 10 feet of it, contracts like a compressed spring. The head launches upward from the burrow at a speed the fish's nervous system cannot process. The mouth everts, flipping outward in a mechanism called an eversible pharynx, extending the entire jaw apparatus forward like a bear trap springing open from inside the sand. The jaws close. The fish is seized. The body retracts. The prey is dragged beneath the sand. The surface settles, flat, calm, undisturbed, as if nothing happened. The entire sequence, detection, strike, capture, retraction, took less than a second. The fish never reacted. It was swimming over sand, and then it was inside the sand. No transition visible to any observer, no evidence left behind. This is the bobbit worm, Unis aphroditoa, and this is what 400 million years of optimization looks like. 400 million years. When the ancestors of the bobbit worm first appeared during the Devonian period, dinosaurs didn't exist yet. Fish hadn't developed jaws yet. Trees had just evolved. The planet bore no resemblance to the modern world. If you had taken a look at the shoreline, you wouldn't have recognized a single living creature besides the worm in the sand. Because 400 million years ago, they looked almost exactly the same. In 2017, researchers in Ontario, Canada, identified a fossil named Websteroprion armstrongi, extracted from rock layers dating back approximately 400 million years. The soft body had decayed. Worm tissue cannot survive over geological time. However, the jaws preserved this structure. They had mineralized within the rock, and these jaws were the largest ever recorded in the fossil record of many-toothed worms. Based on the jaw size, the animal's length was estimated to be over 3 feet, a giant by worm standards, and anatomically nearly identical to the jaw structure of the modern bobbit worm. This is what troubles evolutionary biologists. Most organisms change over geological time. They adapt, they specialize, they diversify. Their lineages go extinct and something else takes their place. The bobbit worm did none of these things. If you place a 400 million year old fossil jaw next to that of a modern bobbit worm, the structural differences would be negligible. The same mandibular geometry, the same maxillary spines, the same outward-facing pharyngeal structure, the same ambush strategy. The design didn't change because the design didn't need to change. It was already at a local optimum, a configuration so effective for its ecological niche that any mutation away from it was worse, not better. The bobbit worm reached its peak 400 million years ago and has been sitting there ever since, surviving every mass extinction event the planet has thrown at it. The Permian extinction killed 96% of marine species. The bobbit worm survived. The Cretaceous extinction killed the dinosaurs. The bobbit worm survived. It has outlasted every dominant species that has ever existed on this planet by simply being too well designed to need improvement and too well hidden to be found. But the fossil record reveals one more detail that explains why this animal is still here. The jaws are always the only part preserved. The body decomposes, the burrow collapses, the antennae vanish. But the jaws survive geological time because they are built from something harder than most biological materials have any right to be. The bobbit worm's jaw structure is not a simple mouth. It is a three-stage weapon system that performs the actions of cutting, locking, and pulling in a single coordinated movement faster than the prey's reaction time. Stage 1. The mandibles. These are the primary jaws, two blade-like structures that close with enough force to split a small fish in two. It doesn't stun, it doesn't wound, it splits in two. For larger prey, the mandibular closure is powerful enough to damage skeletal structures. Within the first fraction of a second, it crushes the spine or shatters the skull. The prey is functionally dead or has lost the ability to move before it even realizes the attack has occurred. Stage 2. The maxillae. Just behind the lower jaws, there are serrated, tooth-like structures that engage the moment the lower jaws close. If the lower jaws are blades, the upper jaws are the lock. The serrations grip the prey's tissue and prevent any backward movement. Escape is impossible. The upper jaw lock is so effective that during the third stage, prey significantly larger than the worm's head diameter can be held in place. Stage 3. Retraction. The segmented body, potentially a 9.8-foot long, coiled muscular tube, contracts in a coordinated wave from back to front, generating a pulling force that drags the locked-in prey downward. The mandibles cut, the maxillae clamp down, the body pulls. These three sequential actions occur so rapidly that they appear to happen almost simultaneously. The jaw material itself is composed of chitin-rich biological compound, the same class of material that makes arthropod exoskeletons hard, but in the bobbit worm, concentrated into structures that can withstand repeated high-force impacts without fracturing. This is why the jaws are the only part that survives fossilization. They are harder and more chemically resistant than the surrounding tissue by a massive margin. The weapon outlasts the body that carries it by hundreds of millions of years. There is an unconfirmed hypothesis that the bobbit worm may inject a toxin during the initial bite, a paralytic compound that disables the prey's motor function within milliseconds of the mandible strike. The evidence is suggestive, but not yet peer-reviewed to confirmation. What is confirmed is that even without any chemical assistance, the mechanical system alone, the speed of the aversion, the force of the mandible closure, the serration lock of the maxillae, the retraction power of the segmented body, is more than sufficient to capture, secure, and consume prey that in many cases is larger than the worm's own head. You are looking at a jaw system that has been field tested for 400 million years without a redesign. The mandibles that split fish today are the same mandibles that split fish before trees existed. That is not a predator. That is a finalized engineering specification. But the jaws only work if the prey comes close enough to trigger them, and for that, the bobbit worm needs something that most predators in the ocean have given up on entirely. The bobbit worm has no fins or tail to chase its prey. It has no propulsive power to move through open water. Its body structure is designed exclusively for a single environment, a burrow it digs in soft sediment, and for a single hunting strategy: absolute stillness followed by a single explosive strike. This means the worm's survival depends entirely on the prey coming to it. And for the prey to come to it, the prey must remain unaware of its presence. It is perfectly camouflaged. Its body is buried. The entrance to the burrow is flush with the surrounding sandy surface. The only parts exposed, 5 antennae, are so small and so similar in color and texture to the sediment that they are functionally invisible to fish swimming overhead. Marine biologists who have studied bobbit worms in the field have reported that they swam directly over known burrow locations and were unable to detect the animal without prior GPS coordinates. The worm is invisible even to a trained human eye at close range. A fish swimming over it stands no chance. But the camouflage goes beyond visual concealment. The worm's body, when exposed to the dim, scattered light of the seafloor, displays iridescence, shimmering tones of blue, purple and gold that shift depending on the angle of light. In open water, this would make the animal conspicuous. On the seafloor, where ambient light is fragmented and inconsistent, the iridescence actually breaks up the body outline and matches the visual noise of the environment. The worm's coloring is not beautiful by accident. It is functional camouflage tuned to the specific light conditions of its habitat. The wait can last hours, days. The worm expends almost zero energy while waiting. The metabolic cost of lying in a burrow with 5 antennae exposed is negligible, a fraction of what any swimming predator burns during a single hunting patrol. The ambush strategy is not just effective, it is cheap. The bobbit worm runs its entire predatory operation on an energy budget that most fish would burn through in a single chase sequence. And while it waits, it monitors. The chemoreceptors on the antennae sample the water continuously, building a chemical map of the nearby environment. Which organisms are present, how close they are, whether they are moving toward the burrow or away from it. The mechanoreceptors detect pressure waves, the displacement of water caused by a swimming fish, a crawling crab, a drifting shrimp. The worm's body processes both inputs simultaneously, correlating chemical identity with physical location, and holds the strike until the prey crosses a threshold distance that guarantees capture. The trigger distance is very short. The prey must be within the radius of the pharynx's outward rotation, usually just a few inches. The worm does not attack distant targets. It does not expend energy on attacks with low probability of success. It waits for certainty. And when certainty arrives, the attack is precise and inevitable. This is not patience in the sense humans understand it. It is a biological system calibrated over 400 million years to strike when the probability of capture is nearly maximum. The worm does not choose to wait. It is designed to wait. Waiting is what it does better than any other predator in the ocean. Yet even the most efficient predator has weaknesses, and the bobbit worm's response to its own vulnerability is one of the most unsettling adaptations in marine biology. When a predator targets a bobbit worm, the worm is in trouble. Just like a triggerfish buried in the sand or a large stingray that has poked its head out, it cannot escape. It cannot fight in open water. Its entire body structure is optimized for the burrow, and outside the burrow, it is nothing more than a 9-foot-long strip of tissue, unarmored, defenseless, and vulnerable to predators. So it does something else. It allows the predator to take a piece of it, and then it breaks off. Autotomy. The deliberate detachment of body segments at predetermined breakpoints. The predator pulls. The worm resists briefly, enough time to use the cheetae bristles on its rear segments to grip deeper into the burrow, and then a segment simply detaches at a calculated point along the body. The predator takes a piece of the worm into its mouth. The remaining body is pulled deeper into the burrow without its vital structures being damaged. The segmented body plan that makes the bobbit worm such an effective striking machine also makes it a modular survival system. Each segment is a potential sacrifice point. The worm can lose 20, 30, even 40% of its body length and survive, as long as the head, jaws, and enough core segments remain intact. The lost segments regenerate over weeks to months. The worm grows back what it gave away. This is the trade. Speed for the predator, survival for the worm. A calculated exchange of tissue for continued existence. And because the worm can regenerate, the exchange is temporary. The predator gains a meal, the worm gains a future. The regeneration is not unlimited. It requires energy, time, and sufficient nutrition during the regrowth period. A worm that has sacrificed a significant portion of its body is smaller, slower to strike, and less effective at capturing large prey until the segments regenerate. But it is alive. In the calculus of survival, alive and smaller beats dead and whole every time. The segmented body performs yet another function that researchers are still trying to fully understand. In some polychaete worm species closely related to the bobbit worm, segments can transform into specialized reproductive units called epitopes. These units are body segments filled with eggs or sperm that detach, float to the surface, and release gametes into the water column for external fertilization. It is not yet certain whether the bobbit worm uses this exact mechanism. However, the reproductive biology of this animal remains one of the most significant blind spots in marine invertebrate research. A 3-meter-long predator that has existed for 400 million years, and we still do not fully understand how it reproduces. This brings us to the most unsettling fact about the bobbit worm. It is not confined to distant reefs and deep-sea floors. It is already in people's homes. It starts with live rock, pieces of natural coral reef sold to saltwater aquarium hobbyists for biological filtration and aesthetic purposes. The rock is harvested from tropical reefs and shipped worldwide. Inside the crevices of that rock, invisible to the naked eye, bobbit worm larvae occasionally hitchhike, a few millimeters long, translucent, indistinguishable from the dozens of other harmless organisms that colonize live rock. The larva settles into the aquarium substrate. It feeds on detritus. It grows, slowly. For months, sometimes years, the worm lives in the tank without any visible indication of its presence. It is too small to take fish. It is too hidden to be seen. The aquarium owner notices nothing. Then fish start disappearing, one at a time. No bodies, no evidence. Water parameters normal, no visible predator in the tank. The owner checks for disease, checks for aggression between tank mates, checks the filtration system. Everything looks fine. But fish keep vanishing, usually at night, usually the smaller ones first. In 2009, at the Blue Reef Aquarium in Newquay, England, staff faced exactly this scenario. Fish vanishing, coral being damaged overnight, no explanation. They dismantled the entire tank, removed every rock, drained the water, sifted the substrate. What they found beneath the sand was a bobbit worm over 3 feet long that had been living undetected in the display tank for years. They named it Barry. The same year, at Seto fishing port in Japan, a specimen was discovered measuring nearly 10 feet. In 2013, a home aquarium owner in Surrey, England, reported finding one that had lived in his tank unnoticed for an estimated several years, growing silently in the substrate while his fish population slowly declined. The bobbit worm did not choose to live in an aquarium. It was carried there by accident inside a piece of rock. But once established, it did what it has done for 400 million years. It built a burrow. It extended 5 antennae. It waited. And when a fish swam close enough, it fired a jaw system that has not needed a redesign since before trees existed on this planet. The bobbit worm is not the fastest predator in the ocean. It is not the strongest. It is not the largest. It does not have the most sophisticated brain or the most complex social structure or the most dramatic hunting display. What it has is 400 million years of proof that none of those things matter. It possesses a jaw system that cuts, locks, and pulls in a sequence faster than its prey can perceive. Its body, composed of the same segmented architecture, functions as a biological spring, a modular sacrifice system, and a potential reproductive launcher. Using 5 antennae, smaller than a grain of rice, it possesses a sensory system that operates in complete darkness without the need for vision. It has a nest that it builds, reinforces, and inhabits throughout its adult life without ever needing to leave it. It has survived all mass extinction events over the past 400 million years. It has outlived all dinosaurs, all marine reptiles, all giant sharks, all ice ages, all changes in ocean chemistry, and all tectonic upheavals. And it has achieved all this by lying in the sand and waiting. The next time you look at an undisturbed patch of sand on the reef, flat, calm, ordinary, remember that something might be watching you. With its 5 antennae and with 400 million years of experience. It's waiting for you without you even knowing it, and it hasn't changed what it needs to do in its next move. If you've watched this far, don't forget to subscribe and check out my other videos.